Hello, everybody. I'm just wanting to make sure that I'm doing all this right. I just need to get this settled in here. Okay. Now, let's see. I want to make sure that I can view you all and accept you all. Hello. Hi, everybody. It's complicated. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm recording this on the computer, and now I don't see it. Okay. All right, so the waiting room, let's see. Meetings, admit all. There we go. That was easy. Hi, everybody. Just want to make sure that you guys have that you make sure you hi.
And then pour the juices, if that's way possible. All right, so we're just about done juicing. All the juice came out.
Okay, can you mute your computer where it says mute at the bottom left? That'd be great. Okay. Okay, so I think, thank you guys for muting. I can see that. And Teresa, if you're there, we need you to mute. Hi. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody mutes, so then that way there's no, last time it was a little noisy and I didn't know, so I apologize for that. Okay, so today's class, oh, there's still somebody else waiting. Let me just admit. How do I admit? So complicated here. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so if you see me distracted a little bit, it's because I want to make sure everyone that's trying to get in can get in, because last week we had like 10 people that couldn't get in because I didn't know I had to admit them. So anyway, okay, so today I'm going to talk about, from our book, Live Foods, Live Bodies, chapter 2. And it's kind of, it's going to be a lot, so, but I'll try to make it concise and easy to understand and all that. Anyway, I have my carrot juice this morning. And the reason why I did that is because I want to show you the pulp, but I want to talk about something else first. You see this little card here? I want to read it to you guys before I get into the book. This is something that Jay wrote, and it was about a year before he died. And I think he was watching television or something, and he found something, and he wrote it down. This is his handwriting. And I want to share it with you because it's such a beautiful saying. It says, "It is never too late to be what you might have been." Now, that took me a while to figure out. I mean, it was sort of like a double negative or a double positive. And so, what it means is that I think it was okay, here's the story. I have a sunroom here in Phoenix, and I had this card, standing up on the bookcase so I could see it, in the sunroom. So one morning I went out to water my new little citrus plants or trees, and the card wasn't on the bookcase anymore. It was on the ground, perfectly centered on the ground right in front of the screen door. And I thought, what is that? And this was I think about a month before I decided I was going to do these classes. So I think it was Jay, coming to me and saying, "Hey, Linda, get with it. Come on, let's get you back on camera and, get you motivated, because nowadays it's just not the words anymore that motivate us. It's it's the video." And so that's what really prompted me, of course, with some other friends that really inspired me to keep going. So anyway, before I get into the chapter, what I want to do today is talk about some of the books that I really love. Okay, there's so much going on YouTube and all that, but I come from old school, and I like to refer back to my books. This is one book I think you guys should get. It's one of Jay's biggest mentors. It's called Become Younger by Dr. Norman Walker. And as you can see, it's really old. I mean, pages are this book. I mean, I've had this book for like 40 years. So I want you to write that down. I think you can get it for free if you Google it. Just Google Become Younger by Dr. Norman Walker PDF. And I think you can get this now for free, which would be really great. And then the other one by Dr. Walker is called Vibrant Health, The Natural Way to Vibrant Health by Dr. Norman Walker. And this man, here's a picture of him. He lived, well, he died about, I think he died in 1985, but he was 100 years old. Technically, he was 99 because I looked it up on Wikipedia, but for many, many decades, people say, oh, he was 120, he was 117, but the truth is he was 99. And the man lived a beautiful life. He really, really walked his talk. He was an incredible philosopher as well. And he was, you know, this is the thing about juicing, and you start getting into more living foods. There is a direct parallel between juicing and our spiritual life, because the light in these foods open up some kind of centers in our brain or in our body somehow, but I'm suspecting it's probably from the heart up, and it changes the way we think and the way we respond to people, especially if we're sensitive enough to receive the information that comes from these sun-baked foods and juices that are rich with not just enzymes, but the life force, which is what Jay used to talk about all the time, the life force, the life force. And we have yet to really understand what life force is, because we're still behind scientifically. And then the other one I wanted to share, which is kind of gross, but you know, like Jay used to say, better out than in, is a book called Tissue Cleansing Through Bowel Management. And this is by Dr. Bernard Jensen, an old friend of Jay's. And he lived, I think he lived until he was in his late 80s. And he was an incredible teacher, an incredible author. And there's pictures in this book that are kind of gross, but it really shows us exactly where all disease starts from. This is what Jay has always said. All disease starts from the colon. And when your colon is not well, and it's, you know, we're not evacuating properly. And that what he means also is the small intestine. So we have the small intestine that wraps around in a big way, 20 something feet, maybe even more. And then we have our large intestine, the ascending, transverse, and descending colon. This colon needs to be elastic. It needs to be elastic in a way where it can take your food and eliminate it properly without really cramping up and attracting bacteria and parasites. And this is the most important thing that we need to do. Speaking of parasites, now that I'm sort of on the colon part, there's a website too that I really like. I really like this doctor, and I really like what they sell and what they do. And he's a great, great teacher. His name is Dr. Group, Group, Dr. Edward Group. And he has a website called globalhealing.com. This is my iodine that I take every day from them. And I only take like 1 or 2 drops because I do a lot of thyroid challenging greens like kale and broccoli and cabbage. Those have a tendency to keep the thyroid from not absorbing iodine properly. This is what the research is coming out with recently. So I just do a few drops under my tongue, because any woman that's over 50 knows that the thyroid can kind of get wacky, and we start to gain weight, and you know, we start to look bloated, and that's because the thyroid gets sluggish. And that is the master gland. Although if you were going deeper than that, the real master gland sits behind the eyes, the hypothalamus and the pituitary. But as far as keeping the rest of the glands in balance, the thyroid really needs to be in good shape. Okay, the next one I want to talk about is this book. It's really heavy, and it's really, really great. It's called Rainbow Green Life with Cuisine by Dr. Cousens, Gabriel Cousens, Cousens. Many years ago, Jay and I went down to his center in Patagonia, Arizona. And in Arizona, at his healing center there, he does 100% raw foods. Now, Jay and I, we're not advocates of 100% raw foods, because you'd have to be living in a cave and meditating every day in order to really, you know, withstand the intense ether energy that raw foods brings us. And ether energy deals with the eyes up, like, you know, it's really very airy, and it's a highly ungrounding, especially if you work you know, you're driving a car, you're living in a big city. It's just not practical. And I can't teach something that first of all, that I don't do. And secondly, that is not, it's not going to serve you, because what that means is you're going to fail. And I don't want you to fail. I want you to slowly build up the ladder. And as you do that, what will happen is you'll start learning more and integrating more and experiencing more and having experiences that motivate you and inspire you. And so that takes time to develop. So anyway, this is what I meant to say about this book. It's all raw, but if you know anyone that has cancer or that really needs a good cleanse, this book really will take you on some great journeys. And he'll take you into phases, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, kind of the way I do in my book. But it's strictly for people that are very, very ill and need like super help. Okay. And then the next one is, this is our old book, The Juice Man's Power Juicing. You guys have that? Yeah, I can see. Good. Well, this is the larger paperback of the book. And this was Jay's original book. I think he sold like 6 million of these books. It was a lot of books he sold back in the mid 90s. And this is a real classic. This is a great book and classic juice therapy recipes. And I thought maybe you might, I know this sounds crazy, but I actually go on eBay and buy his original one, which was like a really intense green. It's bright, bright green with a yellow background. And that was the original book. Then this one came out a couple years later, but I actually go on eBay and buy these books used because I can't, you can't find them anymore, but I think you can find this one at bookstores. So that is that. And then this is the actual paperback version of my book, Live Foods, Live Bodies. And remember in a couple weeks ago when we did chapter 1, I was talking about publishers and how publishers like to take your knowledge and then kind of manipulate it the way they feel that the reader wants to hear. And that's pretty much exactly what happened with this book. A lot of things were taken out of it, and it wasn't my voice or Jay's voice. The real voice is in this hardcover book that I have, and they're hard to find. I only have like maybe a couple thousand of the books left, and then I won't. Yeah, there you go. That one right there. That book is, is special to me, and but it's okay. Some people just want a smaller version, a paperback version. That's totally fine. Nothing against the publisher, because I love those guys too. Okay, so those are the books, and what I want to get into next is The Power of Juicing, chapter 2. In the beginning of this chapter, Jay talks a little bit about his background and how he became ill with cancer, but I went into that last week, I think, pretty heavily. Don't you guys think that? Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll just briefly talk about it. Jay was a professional football player, the Green Bay Packers, and he got he got injured. And right after he got injured, he got very ill. And now this is the beautiful thing that I talk about a lot, and I hope you don't get irritated with me, because there are so many powerful parallels to our emotional life and our illness. And when the emotional life is off, what happens, sometimes we fall backwards and we're like, oh my God, not only is my marriage falling apart, but now I'm physically ill, and now my whole life is starting to collapse. And this happens to a lot of people, but they don't make the connection, or some of them don't make the connection, that our emotional life is pretty much the trigger to the physical illness. It's like our higher self or God is trying to tell us, look, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the way you're living. There's something wrong with your lifestyle. There's something that is not in harmony with who you are as a human being. And so if you're not getting that attention, then what happens is that we become physically ill. So at the same time, Jay lost his career, his marriage in 1945, I think, fell apart. He lost his children. His wife divorced him. And this was, of course, after he came back from World War II. And so and not only that, oh gosh, he was so sick and so poor that he didn't have the money to pay his wife. So she had him thrown in jail in Los Angeles. And it was a small town called San Pedro, which is like, I think, like a little fishing town on the harbor side of Los Angeles. And her dad, I guess, was really powerful, and they found him and they put him in jail for, I think, about a week. And he said, Linda, after that happened, I just could never go back. So we went to New York, and that's when he started his cancer treatments with Dr. Max Gerson. And, within 3 months, the tumor had disappeared. He was an entirely new man. He had lost a tremendous amount of weight, and now was completely infused with this passion for teaching people about juicing. And, back in those days, he used to, believe it or not, this is, before computers and television. There was only, 2 stations, ABC and NBC. Back in those days, communication was really hard to get. Like, information was very hard unless we went to the Encyclopedia Britannicas. We're not going to find that there about juicing, right? So he used to knock on doors, like door to door, to people with this big juicer. It was called the K&K, which was the precursor to the Norwalk juicer. The Norwalk juicer is a press that's like this big and that wide. It weighs about 40 pounds. He used to carry that and knock on doors and ask if he could demonstrate juicing to these people, It's just like, I could never have done that. I mean, it's bad enough that I had to go to these health shows with him and, and like talk to strangers. It was very hard for me. But anyway, that was sort of his background. He got well, and then everything changed from there. And he spent the rest of his life just going from city to city and having, little juice demonstrations. And sometimes he'd get on television or radio. And then when we met in 1980, by the time we got married, I had a strong marketing background. So I used to, we just, it just all came together. And then eventually we got him to do things bandwagon nationally, and for 10 years inspired hundreds of millions of people every single day on television to understand that juicing can literally change your life. So I want to get my notes here because there's so much information I want to share with you guys today. And by the way, I'm recording this, so hopefully you'll be able to refer back to this and share it. And I'm going to post it onto my Facebook page and also onto the Juice Man group. That's it's not a private group, but you need to ask to get in. And I pretty much share everything I share on my page anyway. But okay, let me get my notes out here. Now, if you guys have any questions, you can put it in the chat. That is, if I can find it. Let's see, waiting room, admit all. There we go. Hello, everybody. Okay, good. Everybody's here. I had 3 people waiting. Hello. Okay, so we already talked about Jay's history. We talked about juice therapy, how it saved his life. And it was Dr. Max Gerson that did it. He was a medical doctor from Germany. And his daughter, Charlotte Gerson, took over eventually. And she created the Gerson Institute in Bonita, California. Now, Charlotte eventually died. She died, I think she and Jay were like sisters. They were really close. I think she was 95 or something like that, very close to when Jay died. And that's why it's important that I continue these teachings, because juice therapy is different than juicing. Okay, you know, juice therapy is a therapy. And when you're spending money on produce, and as you know, it can be expensive if you really don't know where to buy your produce. I want to make sure that you understand these principles, and that's what the Juicing Masterclass was all about. I created that. Now I'm going to put the links down there below if you're interested, but juice therapy is different than juicing. You just don't put like an orange and a carrot and, oh, let's put some pineapple in there and some greens, because they fight each other. Now, it may not seem like it when you swallow it, but the body needs to have oils with oils and acids with acids. It's very similar to food combining. So for example, carrots have a lot of oil in it. And let's say you put it with an orange. People love doing carrot orange. Does it look good? Yeah, it's kind of pretty. But the acids in the orange interfere with the oils in the carrots. And so you're not going to be absorbing the nutrients as well as you would if you kind of keep them in their categories, which are all in my book. All the juice recipes in these books are all based around juice therapy. There are a few exceptions, but 99% of them are good. The other thing is that the apples are neutral. Okay, you don't want to do the green apples. They're on the acidic side, but most apples like Red Delicious or Golden Delicious are also very good to be blending and juicing with anything. With you can do apples with oranges or citrus or fruits. You can do apples with greens, leafy greens. You can do apples with vegetables. Okay, so hold on a second. I just want to move over here. Okay, so that was one thing that I wanted to say. And the other thing is that yes, so the other thing is that in the book, we talk very, very much about this. Apples with anything will go. Just make sure that you stay with the neutral apples, so Red Delicious or the Golden. And sometimes there are varieties of Golden Delicious apples too. I've been noticing there's varieties. So that's okay. The ones that are kind of yellow that look like a Golden Delicious, those are okay as well. But you have to make sure that they don't get too acidic, which is what the green apples do. Now that kind of contradicts Gerson's theory, but that's how Jay taught. That's how his master teachers taught him. Speaking of master teachers, Jay's master teachers were Dr. Max Gerson, of course, and then also Dr. Norman Walker, which was the book I talked about earlier this morning. And okay, let me get my notes here. The history of juicing. What is the history of juicing? I mean, think about it. Before juices were ever designed in the 1920s and 30s, what did people do? Well, what they did was they would grate up their carrots or their vegetables. They would grate them up and they would take a cheesecloth and they would squeeze the cheesecloth very intensely to get the juice into the glass. And this is not something that was created, by just Americans. This goes way back to hundreds of years ago. Probably the Native Americans as well. They've done that with roots. They would soak the roots and then they would squeeze it and get the benefits from the roots. So that's sort of how juicing got started. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that if you've never really juiced before, it's interesting because there's a big vegan community in this country. And in this country, that's a good thing because the less stress we put on these animals, the better. I get it. But I've noticed that most vegans aren't juicing. And I just want to make sure it inspire them to know that juicing really can change your life. And what does it do? It changes your palate. And if you're kind of addicted to fast foods or you're really interested in cooking a lot of heavily cooked foods like macaroni and cheese, and pizza and things like that us Americans love so much. When you start juicing, especially the greens and the carrots and the beets and the zucchini, this is something that will change the palate of the way, like your taste buds, for example. Your taste buds will start to transform and you won't be craving the sweets and the simple carbohydrates very much anymore. And the more you juice, it creates like a ladder that I was talking about. The more experiences that you have that are really good, the better you're going to understand. And all of a sudden these sort of like addicted food starts to fall off of us. And so that's something that I talk about, of course, in this book as well. The real juicing advantage. There's something I wanted to read to you on page 14 that really deserves me to read this because these are Jay's words. It says, the magic of juicing is that it instantly releases these life-giving nutrients. And here's the clincher. It renders them body active. Like body active is another term for bioavailable in about 15 minutes. Do you know how long it takes to digest a typical American meal? Let's say steak, potatoes, and salad. Try more than 6.5 hours just to get out of the gut. And during that process, a lot of the nutrients are lost. The bulk, especially the hard to digest flesh foods, which can actually remain in your system for up to 2 days or more, can prevent all of the important nutrients from being absorbed. So the whole key to super longevity and super good health is that our intestines, our small intestines and our large intestines, they need to not have any kind of film inside of it. Our colon is so backed up with fecal matter, it's like we can't absorb those nutrients. They can't get into these intestines and these to absorb the nutrients, because, you know, and even as we age, I think Jay said that by the time we're 70, we're only absorbing 15% of the foods we're eating. But when we're juicing, we are absorbing 100% of the nutrients, because guess what? It bypasses digestion, goes right into the bloodstream, into the portal vein in your liver, and into our bodies, bioavailable. And this is really important that you hear this, because I know the thing is with me, sometimes I have to hear it over and over again to really understand exactly how this works. The key to good health is fast elimination. If you're eating a, you know, let's say 60–70% of your food is more alive, more living, with salads, fruits, vegetables, then we can eliminate between like 17 and 18 hours. And that way we're not bogged down, we're not sleepy in the morning, we're not like lethargic and we need to have coffee. No, forget the coffee. It's a liver killer. I know you guys are going to hate to hear that, but you just got to find other ways. You know, make some vegetable juices in the morning, or fresh fruit juice. Pineapple is a really good energy giver. Okay, so fruits digest themselves without needing any enzymes, and this is all done within 20 minutes after consuming your fruit juices. This is why most of us get hungry after eating fruit. If you eat a primarily living foods diet, most of our foods are eliminated within 17 hours of consumption. When the body does not have to work hard to digest these foods, guess what? We have more energy. So that's the real advantage to juicing. And, you know, now that I'm older, I really see that advantage, because I'm juicing more now than I did in my 30s and 40s. I mean, I used to just drink, you know, a couple of glasses every day. Jay would make it, the whole family would have some. And now what I'm doing is doing more living soups and more juices, and actually blending. I've been blending lately more than ever. Okay, then the last thing I wanted to talk about on this page is Dr. Walker had a beautiful saying, and this is his quote: "The rays of the sun send billions of atoms into plant life, activating the enzymes, and by this force, they change inorganic elements into organic or life-containing elements for food. If we cook our foods too much, this life force is extinguished." Now, how do we quantify this? How do we analyze it? How do we look at it under a microscope? Well, it's hard to do because there's not a lot of research going on about this, but trust me, through time, this is going to happen. And by the way, if you can look up something called Kirlian photography, it's Kirlian. And Kirlian photography is a special kind of photography that can photograph light. And what's so beautiful about that is that you can actually see like a piece of broccoli that's been cooked, and then a piece of broccoli that hasn't been cooked. And it's amazing the difference, how they look, and how when they're not cooked, these elements start to just glow. It's really, really enlightening. So I urge you to look that up, because that will start making sense to you as to why we want to eat more living foods. Now, we're not, as I said, we're not 100% raw foodists. We don't believe in that. We believe in a 70-30 or 60-40 diet, depending on where you live. And it's really important to know this, because if you're like, I lived in Wisconsin for 5 years, and boy, let me tell you something, it was cold, and this is northern Wisconsin. It was cold, it was snowy, it was icy and dark. And in the winter months, it was very hard for me to, you know, eat a big fruit diet or lots of living food, because I was cold. The body was just cold, you know? So I ate more cooked foods during that 5-year period than I would normally. But now that I'm in Phoenix, it's like a whole different story. Like, I rarely resonate now to more and more of these living foods, but still, I'm still 70-30. I mean, I really do eat cooked foods. And what you can do, this is what Jay used to say, if you really want to kind of take your cooked food and make it come alive, so to speak, you can put chopped raw onions. This is something Jay was a real advocate of, was putting chopped raw onions on your cooked food. So let's say you're going out to a Mexican restaurant where you're cooking Mexican food for dinner. Obviously, that's a very, very heavily cooked meal. You want to make a big salad next to it, and then also put chopped raw onions on top of the cooked food. That will literally give you those powerful compounds and elements, including these powerful enzymes that will help take that cooked food and make it more digestible because they're full of enzymes. Okay, so now what I want to talk about next is the cleanse. We have like a 3-day quick start cleanse. And I mean, this is going to contradict a lot of people out there, but I'm just coming from like 50 years of watching this with people, like watching people fail, watching people succeed, watching people give up, watching people, become extremely well. Sorry, it's my son calling me. So we're just not really big fans of big, long fasts. If you do want to do a long fast, I suggest you do it under a doctor's, like a really good doctor that knows what fasting is all about. But a 3-day cleanse is going to give you a lot of bang for your buck. So in this book, we talk about, kind of calming your life down. So if you're going to do the 3-day cleanse, there's certain things that I don't know if it's in the book or not. I think it is. You want to calm down. You want to drink tea throughout the day, not caffeinated tea, but some herbal teas like chamomile or peppermint, and start your morning off with 32 ounces of freshly made fruit juice. Do not store your fruit juice ever. Just don't ever do it. It's just going to die. All the vitamin C dies, especially, and the enzymes will die. And not only that, people don't talk about this, but bacteria actually grows on these fresh fruits and vegetables in juice form. The bacteria, you can't see it, but it will, and any real expert will tell you it's true. So if you really have to store your fruit juices or your vegetable juices, I suggest that you get like an airtight container, and suck all the air out of it, and then just keep it or freeze it. Sometimes when I have too much fruit in the kitchen and it's starting to get ripe and I just can't eat enough of it, I will cut it up and put it in small pieces and freeze it so that I can have it for the next day in my smoothie. For example, like I love to do that with pineapple because sometimes you can get really good deals, especially right now. Pineapples are really, really reasonable. I mean, I'm at a total limited budget, like probably the rest of you. So I have to be very clever in the way that I buy produce. And these pineapples right now are very reasonable. And I buy them organic and I just peel it off and cut it in pieces. And I do that obviously with bananas and pears as well, and peaches and nectarines, not plums so much because the seed's kind of big. So anyway, on the 3-day cleanse, you want to start off with a really good detoxifying fruit juice and make sure that you drink about 32 ounces. And then up until lunchtime, you want to be, if you're really thirsty, and you should be drinking water and tea, you can drink 2 or 3 glasses in between there. And then for lunch, you can do another fruit juice or you can do a vegetable juice. And then for dinner, you want to do another really calming vegetable juice. Calming meaning like something like celery with cucumber and carrot. These are very calming greens. And the first day, you're probably going to have a headache. You might start eliminating differently than you have before. You might feel nauseated. You might get congested. There's a lot of things. And it says it here in the book, nausea, headaches, disoriented. Dizziness was the big thing for me when I fasted. The first couple of days, I'd always get kind of dizzy. And but when that happens, go back to making some more grounding juices, like make sure you do carrot. Carrot is the best. It is the center of all of our juicing recipes. And it's the greatest carrier. Now, when I say carrier, it's the carrier of these nutrients, of the nutrients that you add with it. So it's not only the base of our juicing, but it's a carrier. And we're big advocates of rainbow juicing. Reds, oranges, yellows, purples, greens, all these. It's really important because now you're getting all the rays of the sun in the colors. Colors mean a lot. I think I'm going to write a book about that. I think I'm going to write an ebook about it, about the energy centers of the body and all the colors that they represent and how these vegetables and fruits correlate with that. Can help keep those energy centers working effectively. So we suggest 3 days max. Just make sure you stay hydrated. Don't overdo it. Don't be stressed out. If you have a 3-day weekend or something, I really would recommend that, because if you're fasting during the work week and you're working hard, it can throw you off. This is really important. And by the end of the 3rd day, on the 4th day, we suggest that you eat more fruit or light foods, you know, like a salad, but nothing too heavy with the oils or nothing too heavy with the cooked foods, because it you know, you might get a little bit of a stomach ache. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is something that yes, okay, something that is important, which is, see, when I made my carrot juice, this is all my carrot pulp. Whoops, sorry about that. Now you see, okay, you see this pulp in my hand. This pulp is usually, or not usually, but always pushed out the back in a juicer, whether it's a slow juicer or a fast juicer. And this came from my juice man juicer. It's just really dry and really like, that's the kind of pulp you want to make sure you have, is that it's like sawdust, you know, and a good fast juicer will do that. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this is because I want you to know that blending is completely different than juicing. Now, do we want to blend? Yes. I mean, I have a smoothie every other day. I love it because in the morning when I'm doing a smoothie, I can also put in my powders, you know, my powders that I love. I don't like the capsules, so I take the powders out of the capsules and I put them in there. And you can't do that with juicing because you can't really stir those powders up in the juice. It just binds up and it doesn't taste well. So blending is significantly different than juicing, and I'm going to tell you why. When you're juicing, all that pulp that I just showed you goes out the back. And what happens when we have pulp? Now we have to digest, and this takes more burden out of the body. You have to digest it. It can take up to an hour for the juices to be separated from the fibers. That's a juicer is nothing more than, this is what Jay used to talk about. A juicer is nothing more than the stomach. The stomach in all of its parts, it's really basically pushing out all the juices from the foods you're eating and pushing them into our bloodstream so they can feed our organs. And the fiber is pushed out through the bowels. Now, here's the thing. Do we need fiber? Yes, we need fiber. We need fibrous foods, but we want to be chewing the fiber through salads, through fruits, through eating our vegetables. This is how we digest these foods appropriately, or not just appropriately, but more effectively. Why? Because our mouth has two enzymes called ptyalin and amylase. And as we're chewing, those enzymes are starting the digestive process. But when we're swallowing blended foods, we are not allowing those enzymes to be released and swallowed. So now the stomach has more of a burden to digest these blended foods. Now, if you want to, you can do what they call a Fletcherizer method. That's a mouthful. Fletcherizer method, which means you take your smoothie juices and you just keep them in your mouth for 30 seconds until they start to warm up and start to warm, and you can feel that, wow, there's something going on there. Then you can swallow it. But that's the difference between juicing and blending. And you know, the thing is, most people just don't understand. When we make, I mean, I'm sure all of you have had coffee in your lifetime. If you've made coffee, right, at home, you take the coffee beans and you grind them up, right? And you put them in the coffee machine, and then the liquid comes out. So when the liquid comes out, we drink our coffee. And what happens in a matter of 5 or 10 minutes? Guess what happens? We start to feel the energy of it. We start to feel that push, like, whoa, wow, I have energy now. Go out and do my work or do whatever it is you need to do. But with coffee, you're not taking the grounds and blending them up with the coffee, right? We throw the grounds away. And the biggest argument people have about juicing is, oh, all that pulp and all that fiber is just being thrown away and we need the fiber. But the truth is, we don't need that kind of fiber. Everything that you need as far as nutrients go is sitting here right in your glass. There is absolutely no food value whatsoever, maybe 1 or 2%, let me change that, in fiber. It's all strictly designed to just feed the intestine, small and large intestine, but only when we're chewing the foods. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So juicing is the #1 way to feed the body. And this is what we share in this chapter. Okay, so On this page here on 19, Jay talks about his top 12 juice combinations. And these are all the juice therapy recipes that we have been using for years and years and years that have been effective. For example, number 6, apple pear, is a wonderful juice to drink before you go to bed at night. Don't drink a lot, maybe 6 or 8 ounces. You don't need a lot. And this will actually help you sleep better. When you get up in the morning, you're going to be like eliminating really easily. It's just a beautiful combination for relaxation and also moving the bowels. And that's also a great juice for the kids. So this here is probably, these are our top 12 juice combinations that we love. And I don't have to go over that, but the next page, I really do want to go over this, our digestive juice aids right here. These are juice aids that Jay and I put together. Well, I think, we wrote this book in 2002 and 2003. So, but, with classic juice therapy recipes, and this knowledge is what's the word? It just is forever. It never changes. We can evolve in certain other ways, but these juices are just, these juice combinations are awesome. So we call them digestive juice aids. Now, here's another way to digest your cooked foods. So say you're eating let's say you're going to go out to dinner and you really want to stay on the high living diet, right? You want to keep it 70-30 or 60-40, depending on where you live. You can make juice ahead of time. These digestive juices, for example, number 1 is called heavy green digestive. The ingredients are carrots, Chinese cabbage, which is bok choy. That, by the way, that's really a sweet cabbage. Also, Napa cabbage is another sweet cabbage. If you can't handle the regular cabbage that you buy at the grocery store, the red or the green ones, some of those big hard round balls, like a big round ball, they can kind of bother your stomach a little bit. So I kind of like using the Chinese cabbage, the bok choy, or the Napa. So anyway, we have carrots, we have the bok choy, we have a little bit of broccoli, flowerets, and then a handful of spinach. Now, our golden rule is never to do dark greens by themselves. It's just too hard on the thyroid. Trust me, I've been through that. I've been through menopause. I know that I had to stop doing some experimenting at one time. It just was threw my thyroid numbers off. And this also contradicts a lot of teachers out there. Green, 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 green. Yes, green is powerful. Green is the earth. Green is our so almost like our mother, these green foods. But we want to balance them out with carrots. As I said earlier, carrots are the carrier to these wonderful nutrients. But in this case, we do use a little bit more of the green because it does help when you're eating the cooked foods. Just don't do like all greens. So you want to follow these recipes. We have carrots. Sometimes we have the garlic. Garlic is a great parasite killer and it's a great digestive aid unless you have ulcers. And so most of the time, these are very well balanced. These are all well balanced juice digestive recipes. The other thing that you may want to do too, if you really just want green, stick with things like zucchini and celery and cucumber. Green zucchini is probably the best. I love green zucchini, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, it's an incredible ingredient to put into your living soups. It's creamy. It gives the soup a creamy, kind of like substantial feel to it. The same goes with juicing. If you just don't want to do carrots and you can't stand carrots or it's too much natural sugar for you, then substitute the carrots with the green zucchini. The yellow can be done too, but I just love the green zucchini. Not many people talk about that, but I have learned through over the years that the green zucchini is just spectacular. And I would suggest, even when you're at home, to make these digestive juice aids with your cooked meals, okay? Okay, and here's the next part of the book, which is Jay and our youngest son, Jason, right here. This picture was taken in 1989. Jason was about 3 years old. And we, of course, we had 2 children, John and Jason. They were born in 84 and 86. And they were on juices from the day they were born. And not so much Jason. I nursed him until he was almost 3. I just was out of my mind with that. But John got onto the juices when he was about, 3 months old. But I wanted to talk a little bit about children's juices. These are all really good for kids. The only thing I would say is Just don't do any green, dark green juices for children under 3 years old. Their stomachs have not matured enough, and it can sometimes throw the body into a little bit of a detox. And so we recommend we stick with the fruits and the carrots and the beets and the apples, and a little bit of spinach is okay, just a little bit. And you can see some of it here, but wait until they're over 3 years old. Like when they turn 3, you can start giving it to them, just not heavy, okay? Yeah, so that's that. And I think that's the end of the chapter. And so the next chapter is when you're green inside, you're clean inside. And that's when we talk about the power of greens and how important they are. But I want to talk about a couple more things on my notes. You see, that was like a long chapter. Yeah, guess what? I think we talked about all my notes. Does anybody have any questions straight away that you would like to ask? If not, you can write to me. Sometimes, I mean, when I do Zoom classes, I always get a little embarrassed. So I try to be quiet. But yeah, go ahead. But you have to, honey, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, the blending is just basically putting everything in a blender, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Yeah, for example, you know, some people want to blend their fruits or vegetables or whatever, and blending, they say blending is like juicing, and it's not. So yes, of course you can, like for example, in the morning when I do my every other juice, I do frozen bananas and I do frozen blueberries. These are all organic. I really stress organic, especially when you're blending organic bananas, organic blueberries, and then I have my organic pineapples that I froze, and then organic strawberries, something, you know, something around that, depending on what's in season. And then I'll add either a nut milk that I love. It always tastes the best when you add nut milks, you know, like oat milk or almond milk. Not doing too much soy milk anymore, but you could do cashew milk, coconut milk. You can add some of that. And then I put all my little powders in. I take them out of the capsules. And Global Healing is something that I use all their products because I just trust the owners. The owners are good friends of mine. They are totally committed to this process, and I trust them explicitly, and that's why I'm promoting them. And I put my little powders in there, and then I just blend it up, and it's just so good. And it's cold in the morning, you know, when it's hot here. I love it. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so anybody have any other questions? Come on, Teresa, I know you have a question. I'm kidding. Okay, then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is I have a program called the 7-Day Challenge. Now, I don't even know if our juicing masterclass students know about this, but last year I created, it's a free program, and it's 7 days of vegan foods, 7 days of juices, and 7 days of guided meditation. And I really love this program. And it's like a gift that I created for you guys that, honest to God, sometimes I'll even listen to it because I forget that I did it, you know, because it's nice to be guided, and it just brings a lot of good energy into your body, and it helps you sort of slow down your life and start to absorb on an emotional and spiritual level these wonderful rays that are out there for us to capture. Okay, so I wanted to talk about that. So it's our 7, meaning like the number, our7daychallenge.com. And I already talked about chapter 3 coming up. And then the Juicing Masterclass is something that is kind of like just a wonderful program. We have graduates already. You finish it, you get a little diploma. And that is the only program that I charge money for. And it's just incredible. I talk about flowers and blossoms and weeds and herbs, that things that people never think about juicing or blending, because with blossoms and flowers, we don't really juice them because they're so delicate. But the energy that flowers and blossoms capture is profound, what it can do to help us. Okay. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. You mean so much to me. And it's like we're all in this together, you know, we're better together than we are apart.
True.
Okay, love y'all. Take
Thank
care.
you.
See you on the 17th of October. I think I'm going to change the class to noon. Pacific Central Time because there's so many people that go to church on Sunday mornings. And now that the pandemic isn't as harsh or hard as it used to be, people are actually going to church and I don't want to interfere with that. So I'll let you know ahead of time, okay?
Okay.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. Bye, honey.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.